Welcome back to the Exchange Place podcast, y'all. Hey, y'all. We are back with another Therapy Thursday, and we have my fave, and y'all fave too, because the first episode I got so much good feedback. I got phone calls, I got text messages, I got DMs. Like, who is this? I'm like, hey, she is so good. But we got Janae, the author, back with us in the
Hi.
building. Hey,
Hey, hey.
girl. Thank you for joining us again.
Yes, no problem. No
I
problem. I love these conversations, so I'm ready.
I really enjoyed. You know what's so funny is that a friend of mine was laughing like, "You really enjoy your show." I was like, "I really watch my own show." I'd be like, it'd
But
be
you
like
should
this.
though. Yep, you should.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Like, I was in our conversation the first time, so it was good to like go back and even like glean from some of the things that you said. And
Hmm.
I got something out of it. It was definitely an exchange being in it, but it was also one after it. So
Yeah.
I'm
It's different,
grateful. That's a
right?
good place.
Go back and like listen to it and then like you hear different things and stuff. Like it's different when you're like actively in the conversation. So good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, everybody loved you. So I hope you
Oh,
get some more clients and just people are rooting. Like, I love this whole new segment. So I thank you for being here again. Today I wanted to touch on something that I don't think we talk about very much, but kind of normalizing apologizing to your children as
okay.
parents.
Yeah.
And since I grew up, and I know you kind of grew up in this, like, kids are kind of supposed to be seen and not heard, and you're the authority over them, or like I always say, kids are God's gift to us that He
Mhm.
allows to help navigate through this thing we call life. But I think when my kids got probably about, my oldest son, I was just sharing with you, will be 21. Yes,
Mhm.
21, y'all. In a week and a half, which is nuts to me. But I remember there was probably about 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, there was a stage in my life where I had to really be honest with my child. Because, of course, I grew up in a stage where your business is grown people business,
It's
their business
family
is
business.
children
Yep.
business.
You don't have business.
Exactly. You don't have, like, you don't got no business. Open that door.
Yep.
So I had kept a lot of stuff from him. So I think he was experiencing stuff without, and my youngest too, because he's 16, but I think my oldest kind of has experienced different versions of me, way more than my younger son.
Yeah.
And I think in this place I had lost my first job ever in life. I was
Mm.
consulting at the time, and my contract. People were like, "You didn't lose your job." My contract got cut, so I lost my job. I had no income coming
Yeah.
in,
Right.
which was terrifying for me. It was the first time that not only had I lost that contract, it just seemed impossible to find. I never had a problem finding work. It was a very very eye-opening place. It's actually where I found therapy. And I say I found therapy and also
Mhm.
sought it out. Like, something has to give because I can't do my normal thing and kind of figure stuff out myself. But in that, there was a lot of like my past that came up in that place where my son started to ask me questions, and I had to really go back and kind of reflect on, you know, I was
Yeah.
23 or 24 when I had him. I think I was 23 when I actually gave birth to him, but I was a kid, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And not to excuse that, but there was a lot of stuff that happened during that period of time. And I really had to go back and apologize for certain spaces and places. Like, Ma, you were mean in this place, and what was going on? He had he had kind of he was experiencing the emotion in that
Mm.
place. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But without an explanation of like what was kind of going on in my life. And I had to really go back and apologize for a lot of things a lot of behaviors that I had back then. I had a temper, y'all. I always say this when people are like, I have no idea when you had a
I
temper, but
I think word, like the key word in what you just said was explanation. Like
Mm,
so many times, or at least I feel like when, I was a kid and it came time for a grown up to like apologize to me, it would be like a backhanded apology. It would be like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'm sorry, you had to, experience these things, but this is why I had to do it. But still it was
mm,
still very much like a backhanded, apology, but with the explanation piece missing. And I think now, just the world is now, and kids are so more communicative because, I think we are just more open to like kind of fostering, that conversation, that the
hmm.
explanation piece is needed. Like
It is.
it's so needed. Like I was actually telling one of my other therapy clients the other day, she was saying she was in a space of, I ain't got to explain myself to nobody, and I ain't got to say this and I ain't got to say that. And I'm like, yeah, like that's what social media says, that's what society says, I ain't explaining myself to nobody. But if we truly did just take maybe like a second and, explain ourselves and kind of, explain our thought process and why, we chose to do what we did, right? So many things could be calmed, like just a little bit, right? And even more so, yeah, with our little ones, like we need to be able to like explain like why this is happening to make it make sense in their little minds, because they're going to keep asking anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I know growing up for me, my answer to everything was because I said so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was like, it was like, oh, because I said so. It's like, okay. And again, we talked about this, I think, on the first show that I was curious. I'm still curious as an adult. Like, I'm like, girl, I got so many stories that I won't even share right here. Like, I was just a curious kid. Like, I would look
Yeah.
at things. I'm going to share something that's so funny. As a child, I remember trying to figure out, and do not laugh at me, how perfume got in the perfume bottle. My
Okay.
mom had a whole thing of her whole dresser was perfume, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
used to freak me out. Like, how did they get that in the bottle? Like, I just was a curious kid. I
Yeah.
won't tell you what
Yeah.
I did that I got a beaten about, but I just, yeah, I figured out how to get the perfume out, is all I'll say, and then I couldn't get it back in. So, but
Okay.
I was
Okay.
I
Curious.
was 100%. I was a curious kid, and I'm still a curious person. That has benefited me though, asking questions. But my answers to most of my questions back then was pretty much like, because I said so,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, okay, like why are we doing this though? Like
And that is
what's the
so
point behind that?
unhelpful. Yep, that is so
Yeah.
unhelpful because even in your young mind, you're like, that don't make sense, right? Like that literally
Not
makes
at
no sense.
all.
We have
That
even
makes
more
no
questions,
sense.
if anything.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned, even, I think me and my dad went through this process, God rest his soul, but prior to him dying, where I had the opportunity, I always say that the last 18 months of my dad's life were the best days for me because I really had the opportunity to get to know him as a person
Yeah.
and not necessarily a parent. And though he was my parent, but just I got understanding and
Mm,
explanation of who and why he was the way that he was. Now,
yeah.
that didn't excuse some of the behaviors that he had when I was younger. It didn't excuse some of the things that I felt as a child, but it did give me, I think for me, it gave me a level of the ability to give him more grace in those
Yeah.
spaces because I truly had understanding of like, wow, like
Hmm.
I don't know if I endured what you endured, how I would be either. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like,
Right. Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I just, I want to talk about that in the sense of like, do you think that parents, I know we're kind of in this stage too where they what do they call it, soft parenting, where people are doing the soft parenting thing,
I'm
and
definitely, yeah, I'm definitely a gentle parent. I really am.
you're
Like I'm
okay,
definitely in that space because
okay.
she be jumping me.
So what does that even? Because I definitely can say I think I'm a gentle parent now.
Mhm.
I would say that. but I don't want to go too far because my
I
kids
like
might
the
listen
I
to
like
this.
the
But I'm a gentler
Yep.
parent now. I know that I was not that. I was 100%. I've been a single parent for most of their lives. I have always felt like I wanted to instill their boys, right? And I, and I know I also treated my older son harder. I don't want to say harder, but I think I was harder on him in a lot of cases because in my head, and I've told him this too, because he said something to me like he always thought that I liked my younger son more.
Mm,
And,
yeah.
that's hard for a parent to hear because I don't, they're two different people, first and foremost, just two different children. And I know most people say I love them the same, but I love them differently. I do because
Mhm,
they
mhm.
require different things.
They
What they
do. So
need
yeah,
are not
you're
the
a different
same.
parent. Yep. Yep.
I'm a different parent to like one is they're just different. Also, my younger son was a preemie. He was 2 pounds when he was born. He needed a different level of care just as a younger child in and out of the hospital and breathing issues. It was just different.
Right. Right.
But I remember him saying like, well, he kind of thought that I loved my younger son more, and I'm like, no, that's not it. But in my mind, the explanation for me was if I can get him straight, Jaden will follow him. Does that make sense? And it probably doesn't make sense to people, but I'm like, if I have him on the straight track,
Yeah.
men, not even men, but younger siblings look up to their older
Yeah.
siblings. So 9 out of 10 chances he would follow him. So I'm like, if I can get you good,
Yeah. And
then
no,
just
and that makes sense. That makes sense, especially, with him being the oldest and,
Mhm.
him kind of like setting the mold for like the younger ones. Cause I even
yeah,
remember like even just a few years ago, like having conversations with my dad, like I'm the oldest of and there's, four other girls behind me. And he would
hmm
always come to me and he'd be like, I'm telling you first, and I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, what are you telling me? Like, you got all these kids. What are you telling me for? And he's like, I'm telling you because you're the oldest. The rest of them will listen. And like,
yeah,
it's such like, such a thing, a big thing to put on the oldest when like, yeah, some things they might listen, but also they're their own people. So they require different parenting too, So
yeah.
coming to me is helpful because I'm the oldest, yes, but at the same time, like they gonna be who they be and do what they do, right? But like you said, that's where that explanation piece comes into it.
Yeah, and I think you said something profound in that, and I think that's one thing that I didn't necessarily realize or even take into account was they were very. I was aware that they were very different people, but that was kind of probably the same as your dad. Like that was my thought process. Like if DJ's straight, Jaden is gonna follow. He looks up to his brother. He's just gonna, kind of get in line. But I don't think in that place I was necessarily looking at them as two separate people. Like,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that was the thing that I had to apologize because I do know, and I think first of all, parenting does not come with a guide.
Mm.
There is no guide to parenting. It is probably one of the only things I always say this that is so weird to me. It's like the only thing that you don't need any type of qualifications to do. Like
Yeah.
you got to go to school, you got to get certified or get a
Yep. We
diploma
need
or
letters of
something.
recommendation.
Yeah,
Like we need a lot of stuff.
yeah. By having children, you can just go and kind of have them, and there's no manual, and you're raising when people who have multiple children, you're raising different individuals. Like you said, they have different personalities, different temperaments. What works for one may not work for another. And the first child, I feel bad for first children, but I think they put up with a lot because I do think, and I can laugh about this now. I do think parents are experimenting and trying to figure out what works. Like,
They're the guinea pigs. They are. The first kid is usually like the guinea pig one. Yeah, like we're the hardest on that one. We expect the most. Even sports, like we put them in all the sports, we do all the things and just kind of expect this level out of them. And then the second one comes and it's kind of like just please go to sleep, please eat, please be a good person, just follow your older brother, older sister.
just follow, yeah. I know, and I even for younger children, because again, I say normalize apologizing to your children, because I also had to go back and apologize to my younger son because I think in my thought process of like follow DJ, he kind of felt the same way, like he kind of got lost in, do you know what I mean? Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what about me? Clear of like just the focus is on me. And I thought about that again in the sense of like most of his pictures have his brother in them. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
DJ has a lot more, it was just him. So it was a lot more focused just on him
Yep.
opposed to Jaden not really having that. And like you said, you do kind of like all the pictures and stuff that I did with DJ. I'm like, he don't need that. I was
Yep.
like, you know, what I mean? That's not as important or whatever. But it does show up. And I have to have some, I think what I would call me and the boys have what I call check-ins.
Mhm.
But I had to initially have kind of like some hard conversations and really sit them down and give them explanations of, there was one thing that DJ said to me, I don't think I'll ever forget. He's like, Ma, you just used to be so angry.
Mm.
Like so angry. And I felt so like what that is to hear,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, from your child. And I know that. You know what I'm saying? He probably got more of my anger than anyone else. And there was, of course, we won't get into why,
He
but
was right there
um
for us. He was right there through it
he
all.
he was the
Yeah.
closest to that. So now I think back of just like probably how snappy I was, and he's just trying to be a kid. Um, how hard it is to just be a single parent in general, a young one financially, what that looked like, and just the stress and the weight of the world on my shoulders. And not that that made it right.
Mhm.
And I don't even for me, I don't even think I was thinking, like, I know that I wasn't thinking about, oh, you're mean. Like,
You
I
were
mean,
literally just existing, you know what I mean? Like you were
yeah,
just trying to make it day by
trial,
day, trials and
survival.
tribulations, figuring out this parenthood thing. And then like I think about the things that like, we do in our 20s, the types of things that, 20-year-olds do, right? And then you attach a
Yeah.
child to that and it's like, you know, I done did some stuff, right? I done been through some situations and I'm also a parent dealing with that too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
some apology or, explanation type of conversations, probably need to be had, I think, to even, start the healing process. But
Yeah.
you have older kids, your kids are older. Like my baby is 6 today. Shout out to my baby. It's her birthday.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, she's 6 today, and our conversations and our well my explanations are a little bit different.
Mhm.
um because actually even just a couple of days ago, like we were sitting in the car and we were having a conversation, and she hates sports. She doesn't want to do any type of sports. Like we tried soccer, and she hated that. And I said, well, Zoe, what do you want to do? Like we already do dance class, and we can stick with dance, but like, do you want to do anything else? Do you want to do like basketball? And she was like, I can't do basketball, girls don't do basketball. And I was like, no, they do basketball. And she said, well, I've
Mhm.
never seen one. And I was like, So I said, you know what, Zoe, mommy, sorry. That's mommy's fault because girls do play basketball, but I have to show you that. So in my mind, like, that's what I was thinking. Like, oh, like she doesn't want to play basketball because she's never seen a girl play basketball. That's not a Zoe problem. That's a
Oh,
mommy problem, you know?
I
But I
love that.
said that to her. I was like, mommy has to show you girls playing basketball. I'm sorry, I've never done that. And of course, she was like, oh, whatever, But to me, I'm like, all right, now it's another thing. I gotta list.
Yeah, but I love that. First of all, I love and commend you for having those conversations at 6. And again, if I had to do it all over where I am now, I probably would be having those types of conversations. But I don't think, and I would love to hear back from the listeners too. Like, I know for me, I don't feel like I talked to back then. I don't know that I talked to my children a lot. I mean, I talked to them,
Mhm.
but I feel like I talked at them more than talked to them back
Yeah.
then. And especially where I was, I don't think Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I talk to them more now, like kind of how are you, where are you, what are you feeling, like those types of conversations, or even like, hey, what do you want to do in this space and place.
Yeah.
I don't think, my boys they're both basketball players and they've been in tons of sports to even find basketball, but I don't think I was asking those questions. I actually put DJ in football. He didn't want to be there. I put him in stuff where I'm just like, yeah, you're gonna do it. We'll
But
see if you kind of.
do you think at the time you even knew to ask those questions? Like you even knew that that was a thing?
I think back then, if I'm honest, I was parenting how I was parented.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing well, like most of us do, right? We feel like we grew up this way. That's how we're gonna raise our kids. Like that, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I felt like I never, I grew up in a very tough time. We didn't have extracurricular activities. I think the only thing I did as a kid, I think I was a Girl Scout for a little while. You went
Mhm.
outside to play. Like we didn't have. I mean, I'm sure that it existed, but my mom and dad weren't paying for sports, or there was no AAU team traveling. I've never done first of all, I'm not a girly girl. I've never been. I
Mhm.
was a tomboy. I probably would have never did dance or anything, or
Mhm.
ballet or nothing like that. Anyway, I wasn't that little girl quite. But I don't think that was ever offered to me. Do you know what I mean? So I think back then, honestly, I felt like, hey, you're getting what I didn't have
Mhm.
in that sense. And I don't think it was a lot of room. I think as they got older, I would be like, oh, Jaden cooks. So I started to put him into like, over the summer he would do cooking classes and that kind of stuff. So I was trying to kind of cultivate the things that I saw.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I was asking those questions. I don't know that I knew to. And like I said,
Yeah.
I think I was really parenting how I was parented, not
Yep.
necessarily trying to break generational stuff that I know
Mhm.
didn't even make me feel good. Like I didn't feel good being kind of told like, hey, this is what you're doing. Be there. Don't talk. Just listen and do as I say, not as I do type thing. I didn't like that, but I don't know that I was self aware enough back then
Yeah.
to
I
even
think
be
I
able to
think
identify that.
Yep, yep. I think that's such a beautiful space that we're in right now, to actually recognize that, like, hey, when I first had my child, I didn't know about breaking generational curses. I wasn't thinking those things or having those conversations. I wasn't
Yeah,
thinking of gentle parenting. I know that's the buzzword lately now anyway. And like, these are things that, like, we weren't even aware of or even, thinking of at that time. So now to like be doing it and implementing it well, right? Because we're not just doing it, we doing this shit well. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
exactly,
yeah, the
exactly.
fact that like your kids can like, take in what you're saying and feel, honest with you and feel close enough with you to like have that open dialogue. You know what I mean? Like these are spaces that like we've built, and I think that's just so
Absolutely.
special. I think that's so special.
I agree with you. The one thing that I say now is that I love that I went through that hard place of like explanations and just having those conversations, because I feel like where I am with the boys now, like I've always loved my kids, but I love them in a different way and space, because I feel like there is such, like, I love to have Jaden come home and tell me what happened in school about his friends, and to hear also like his level of self-awareness, his
Mhm.
level of like how he's processing things and looking at things. And it makes me proud, beyond proud, to be like, wow, I'm raising human beings who will literally change the dynamic, because they're going to know and have all these tools when they do have children. And don't make me no grandmother no time soon, but I just want to be clear. But that they seriously, that they will have all of these tools. Like I think about even listening to you where you're saying your daughter, like Zoe's 6. Like I'm thinking, wow, if I was here and had like a younger child, what level will they be at 21? And like my boys are really, sometimes it's a little scary how
Mhm.
self-aware they are, how they process certain things, how even like they select friends. Like I just be like, you, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's and they're not, I want to clear this up, and I want to ask you, I guess, what is the definition of gentle parenting? And and I'm asking you this because I know initially when I heard it, I was like, now are these little kids gonna be disrespecting and kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, what is gentle parenting? Can we clarify like what that is? What's the definition of it?
So I think everybody has their own definition. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't really I don't want to clarify. I'll
Okay.
put it that way
Okay.
because my definition of gentle parenting is different because even with my own mom, like you said, is it going to be disrespectful kids? Well, people find different things disrespectful. Like if
Mm.
for like example, my child, if she don't do something the first time my mom asks, she's like, oh, you ain't moving, you ain't getting up, right? And I'm like, mom, give her a second, like she's gonna get up. So like different things are disrespectful to different people. So for me, gentle parenting truly is about that conversation. It's about making sure that she feels, close enough to me. And also, I've built that space for her to just kind of say what's on her mind, say what she's feeling, say what she's thinking, but also knowing that, like, as she gets older, her own value systems and her belief systems are, kind of being shaped by the people that she's spending time with at school and like all these other different factors. So I want to be involved in that in every aspect. So there's never a time where I want her to be like, you need to do X, Y, and Z this way. Why? Because I said so. That literally makes no sense, right?
None at all. None
Want
at
the
all.
same thing you said. Like I want her to come on and be like, Mom, this happened and that happened. And then I'm be like, so what'd you do? Well, what do you think?
That'd be me.
Right?
I'll be like, so where were you in this? Like,
Yep,
Jada's
me too.
a
Where,
whole
where was the teacher?
therapist.
Where was this one? We're like doing a whole session, right? But they engage, right? They're talkative, they're
Yeah.
open, and to me, that is my version of gentle parenting. Because when she gets
Yeah.
older and she starts hitting, those adolescent teenage years where she can't put her words together as good and can't really understand what's going on in her mind or what's happening to her body as a girl, and all these different things. I want her to be able to be like, Mom, like, what's going on? Or,
What's
just
that?
yeah. So for me, that's important. That's my idea of gentle parenting.
Yeah, I love that space. I would love to know for people, and again, this is not necessarily for you, but I would love to know, I guess, when couples get together before they have children, are they having these conversations of how they're going to raise their children? Like, I think that would be such an amazing place and
Yeah.
space. And I think it's, of course, not normally, again, conversations that we have. It's almost like kind of like marriage, and I need to do some stuff on love, but I think people, get married, and I'll use this kind of like as an analogy, but I think a lot of people put a lot of work into from the ring to the wedding, and they never really discuss what they want their marriage to look like. Like what is
Yeah.
what is it, because like you said, kind of like gentle parenting, it's almost like, okay, we're both saying the same thing, but what does that mean to you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I love that you said like, hey, I can't say it overall, but this is what it means to me. But I wonder if people, and I wonder how far along we could get if people started having those conversations before they had children. Like,
I
hey, okay,
love to know that. Yeah, like are people having these conversations, and then also with other people, like you should do some a poll or something. I don't know. But like what are people's different versions or like their ideas of gentle parenting? Because I'm telling you, everybody's is different. Everybody's
yeah,
is, and it's so interesting.
yeah. When I first heard gentle parenting, if I'm honest, I thought about, I used to work when I was probably about 15, 16. I used to work at the store, and I remember there was the store is we ain't giving no free advertisement, but it's a store that people come to to actually when their children go to college or whatever. And there
Okay.
was a young lady, I will never forget this, and I think that I was probably like 15 or 16 years old. Um, and I was a cashier at the time. It's the only retail job I've ever had. And the mom came and they were shopping for her college stuff. So she must have been what, 17, 18 years old. And the mom is like kind of unloading the cart, and the girl is just kind of like,
Mm.
and didn't pick. And I'm kind of, I'm ringing up, but I'm like
Yeah.
also watching. And the mom says to her, like, "You're not gonna help," and she's like, "I'm not doing that." And I was just like, everything in me, because my mom probably would have reached across the thing.
Yep.
And she kind of just laughed it off, and she said to me like, "Oh, you guys at this age are so funny." I'm thinking, girl, I would never say that to my
No.
mom. So
No.
like when people would say gentle parenting to me, I always initially I was thinking like, the kid that's in the cart and that's wilding out, and the mom is
Yes.
like, "Please don't do that. This is not the time. This is,"
Mm-mm.
and I'm like, if you don't,
Yep.
like the
Nope.
so I had to kind of, I was like, but I do understand it. And again, I know everybody has a different definition. I do understand it because I do wish, not even wish, because my kids wouldn't have the character that they have now, because they had a little bit of both. They'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Mommy a little, look, mommy a little crazy," but she kind of, they tell me all the time, "Ma, you came such a long way," because I 0 to 100 real quick, real quick.
I think that is so like beautiful that they see that in you and they're able to say like,
Yeah,
"Mom, you used to be wilding." You know what I mean? Like you used to do whatever, say whatever, right? And then now they see the evolved you,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
a conversation too. Like son, this is me evolved. This is me on my healing journey. You know what I mean? Like
Look,
that's so beautiful.
yeah, I think it is. Like I am. There are moments that I not cry. Yeah, I cry. I cry. I ain't even gonna hold you. That I just, because I think about how in certain situations I probably would have reacted then, and like my reaction now, and I'm just like, ooh,
Hmm.
girl, you came a long. When I say a long way, a long way. But I think it's a testament. And my dad's life has always been that for me. Is like it's a testament that people can change if you want to, and you do the work. And that change not only has impacted my life,
Yeah.
it it has really impacted my boys' life, and I love that for them. I love it for me. I love the relationship wholeheartedly that I have with them now. And it is literally priceless. Like it is one of those things that I'm just like, I am grateful to be able to sit around the table with them. And not that we are, how people are like, we are friends, but it is with the utmost respect. I don't know how to explain it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
we can have conversations that me and you can have. I literally could talk to them just like I'm talking to you, and I don't dumb myself down to explain it on their level, so to speak, because
Yeah.
they get it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's a great place. So I'm looking forward to stories that you will have with your daughter because you started so early. You know what I mean? In her life, can you imagine
Ah.
the woman that you are raising?
Mm.
Like the way that she will navigate, like even what you said earlier, like, oh, when stuff start happening and people start influencing, I tell you now, and I'm about to cry because every time I think it's due, but it is it is so beautiful for me to my youngest is 16, right? And he'll come home and tell me about something that's happening in there, and just to listen to him and how he's processing what's going on. Like I'm not worried about him necessarily falling into the things that you're even thinking of, because he has this level of emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and like relational intelligence of how he manages people and even sees people. So if you are doing that with Zoe now,
Mm-hmm.
girl, bye. She's gonna be like, "Ma, they have no self awareness." She's gonna trust me, trust me. I'm
It's funny
serious.
because they do like little yoga poses and stuff in
Mhm.
school, like during their like quiet time and stuff. And she'll come home and she'll be like, "I'm going to my room. I need to have a mindful moment." And I'll be like, "Okay,
Okay.
all right, shut me up, okay." And but she says it quite often, and I just, no, I'm glad also that she's in a school environment that is also like fostering that emotional intelligence as well.
Yeah. I love it. Jaden called me. So Jaden didn't go to school today because he needed a mental health day. But I love, he said, Mommy, is it okay? Yes, it's fine.
Yep.
But I love that space for them. Like there were days that it wasn't about, and both of the boys are extremely great in school and diligent. And most of the time, I'd be like, "You can take a mental health day." He like, "I got a test. I want to do this with my
And
like."
that's your gentle parenting. That mental health day is gentle parenting, right? Because like when we
Yeah.
were kids, or even when our parents were kids, right? First of all, there was no notion of a mental health day, and second of all, is, oh, you ain't sick, get about that bed, you going to school, right?
You going to school?
Yep, yep. And what did that do? Like that fostered an environment where you worked through your pain, you worked
Ooh.
through your mental health, right? You work through all of your issues, but they're always there. They never went away. Now you've just like taught yourself to just like, I can't take care of myself or take any time off when I need it. I can't rest. I gotta work through it,
Mm,
you know?
that is so good.
That's
That is so
not
good.
what we're doing. That's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing at all. Like I cannot wait to see the next generation
Yeah.
and what they bring forth. It literally gives me, it brings tears to my eyes and literally gives me a different level of joy because I'm like, oh my God, like they are really going to navigate spaces and places. Somebody asked me recently about my oldest son who will be 21, like, oh, does he have a girlfriend and all that? And it's just even hilarious to talk to him about dating. Like he'll meet somebody nice, one of the girls that he met, nice girl. I was like, what do you think about her? So he's like, yeah, I really think she has, daddy issues. And I'm thinking, and of course I'm listening, right? But
Yeah.
in the back of my head, I'm like, and this is again, he'll be 21. This is probably when he was like 19,
Mhm.
maybe 20. I'm thinking, at that age, I was just thinking who was cute. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was fun in the back of my head. I'm like, we probably have cute kids. Like
Mhm. Yep.
there was no level of depth or substance
Very
to
like
how I was
delusional, just whatever, I'm
just
dating.
fairy tale. Like
Mhm.
fairy tale of like you're gonna meet this person, they're gonna swoop in and I'm like, I don't think I was I wasn't equipped, but just like loving myself enough to know that, hey, I have time to figure that out. It's
Right.
okay to like date people and figure out if this works. I don't know. Back then, for me at least, it's always everything felt so rushed. You were in junior high, you can't wait to get to high school. You're in high school, you can't wait to get to college.
Yeah.
You're in college, you can't wait to get out of school so you can work and get it apart. Like everything was kind of this like rush thing. Whereas I do feel like the kids, whether it's being able to take off a day for mental health, whether it is taking a moment to, have a mindful moment, whether you know what I mean? They have this space
Yeah.
that they know that they have that they are taking full advantage of where they're enjoying, I feel like, just being a lot more
Yeah.
than we are. We did. I'll say I did. I don't know how your childhood was, but yeah, they're taking authority in it. I
Mhm.
think is the best thing
Yeah.
to say, and I love to see it.
It
I
is.
really
It is.
do.
It's like, again, as we evolve, they evolve, as we learn more and as we implement the different things, the gentle parenting and the, explaining to our kids, they change. So it's like we're literally changing each other generation to generation. Like, can you imagine what, way down the line, but like what your grandkids and your kids, right, are gonna be like just based on the work that you put in to change yourself and put it in to
Yeah.
change your boys, and they put it in to change that, right?
Yeah, that's the part I just got to because that's the
Yeah.
part that I'm literally when I'm doing my work and the more work that I do on myself, that's literally who I'm thinking about. Like I'm not just thinking though I of course I'm enjoying, don't get me wrong, because I got so much, I'm so enjoying me, but a lot of the times I'm like, what I'm doing is for people I may never get to meet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I literally have no idea how these small changes and this work that I'm doing today is going to impact the
Yep.
generation after the generation after the generation, that they're gonna
And
be
then,
like,
and
whew,
then, yep, as you think about it too, it's like that's literally what our ancestors did for us.
yeah,
Right, like they were making changes and fighting and soul searching and doing different things, knowing, right, or maybe not knowing, but
mm,
knowing that
yeah,
going to benefit someone I'll probably never meet, but
never meet.
that's the point.
I
Yep.
love it. I love it. What would you? I guess what could we say to someone who has not got to gentle parenting, who wants to do the work? Because I know we talk about, like, I'm in a stage of like I'm full flesh in the work. You are doing the work and
Mhm.
helping other people through their work. But like for people who they have the desire to start, you know what I mean, their journey, a desire to gentle parent in whatever way that looks like for them, what do you think would be the first step to doing that? Like where would people start?
I think people should start with just kind of examining just their own idea of parenting in general and like what that looks like for them, what that feels like, because a lot of dismantling might need to take place in that process, of like the way you were raised, right? And the way or you think, society says that, you should be parenting, especially black parents too, like we are very much, seen and not heard and, still on the we're not doing therapy and we go to church and there's a lot of dismantling that I think needs to happen
Yeah,
when it comes to black parenting in general. So like
yeah,
I think that's a good starting place for us, but also knowing that again, what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for the next parent. So like as we are kind of dismantling, our idea or image of parenthood, we're rebuilding it in ways that serve our bodies and serve our life and
mm,
serve our mental health, you know? Because a lot of
yeah,
people are running around trying to be everything, do everything, and thinking, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is how I was raised. This is how my parents did it, when like that literally goes against like your body and your own emotional health and mental health, So like
yeah,
sort of gentle parenting, make it your own, do it your way in ways that feel safe and feel, okay for you.
yeah. I love that. I really do. I do think the one thing that I will add, I think as people are parenting, and I know it's not always a two parent household. I happen to not have one. So, but I do think for those who do have a two parent household, maybe that is something before you guys completely, or even while you're pregnant, that you start to say, how are we going to parent this child? Because two people who grew up very differently, yeah, everybody's saying the same thing, but they may not mean the same thing. So as they go into gentle parenting, or what does parenting look like for you, I think that would be a great conversation, so both people are on the same page when the baby comes, that
Yeah,
this is
I
what
know.
what we're doing.
Absolutely. Like I had one of my therapy clients was telling me just a random story about how her and her husband, they have just recently got married and they had already had kids and were already, together for a while. But at
Hmm.
the beginning of the school year, she went and bought their daughter a new book bag. And he was like, "Well, what'd you buy her a new book bag for?" And she was like, "Cause it's a new school year." And he was like, "Oh, I've never gotten a new book bag. I always just kind of use the same one that I always had. Like, that's a waste of money. You don't need to do that." And she was like kind of course like flabbergasted, like who keeps the same book bag, like every year you get a new one. And I'm like, see, those are like those little things, right, that like we need to be discussing beforehand, or you know what I mean, just kind of like making some
Yeah,
of discussion, because yeah, that's parenting, right? And that's his
that's
version
parenting.
of parenting that says you don't need a new book bag every year, like that's a waste of money, and hers is saying no, we're getting a new one, it's a new year, right?
Yeah. I wish I think just as people in all relationships, and I don't think it's just um in marriages or even friendships. Like I don't think we have some crucial conversations that we are supposed to. And I
Yeah.
think we only have it when stuff like that happens. And then it's
Hmm.
like, what you mean? Like what
Yeah. Yeah.
what
Like, who
you
are
know
you? I don't even
who
know
are
you.
you? I don't even know who you are. But it's like I don't think we ask the right questions, and I want to challenge the listeners in parenting and in all relationships, honestly, to start thinking about things that are really what I always call core values,
Hmm.
whether it's in your friendships or romantic relationships, and some of that overflows, or even parenting. To start really write, it's okay to write that down. I'm a journaler, so but to start writing that down, even for single people, like we don't have those conversations, and it's scary to me, like to go into especially like life type of commitments when you
Yeah.
start talking marriages and that kind of thing, and people don't have those upfront conversations, and then of course then they're coming to you and saying my marriage isn't working or something is, but it's like, hey, did y'all ever talk about this? Like y'all
Mhm.
never,
Right.
y'all,
Right.
yeah. And it's like, and it's no pun intended for the people that are already married, because I do think you still can go back and have those conversations,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
I think those are really crucial conversations that can help both of you either come to some mid ground or just have understanding of people's upbringing.
Mhm.
Sometimes we don't get to see people's upbringing until we already in something. You be like, what is
Yeah.
some crazy stuff. You like, wait a minute.
Yep.
And they like, well, that's what my family did.
That's
And
how
it's
I
no
was
right.
raised. Yep. That's
Yeah, it's like how that you like, and my thing is always like, who raised you?
Mhm. Mhm.
Who raised you? And I'm sure people have said that to me of like, who raised you? And different is not a bad thing, but there is a middle ground. There is, compromise in that, or just understanding. I think it starts really with having understanding, like, oh, I get it, because
Yeah.
probably for him, and I don't know, I'm making this up, but his mom could have been a single mom and not had the money to afford that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it might have not even been that she didn't want to give him that, but
Hmm.
she didn't have it to give him that.
Yep.
And it's like, but in his brain, it's like, you don't need that. My mother just told me, you good, you good for another
Yep.
year without the explanation of
There
why.
you go. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So I do. Can you leave us? I guess with as we get ready to close out, can you leave us with some wisdom or tips you think for um people who are gentle parenting or want to gentle parent? Um, and I know you dropped some earlier, so I think some of them will probably be repeated. But
For
just
those, yeah, for those already gentle parenting, keep up the good fight. It's phenomenal work, I think, that we're already doing. So just, keep it up and make sure that we are continuing to foster that environment where we are explaining ourselves, and we are, if you need to take a breath and let me go into this conversation. Let me explain myself, even though I don't feel like I want to. But, again, bring yourself back to when you were a kid and nobody explained something to you. You know what I mean? And that didn't sit right with you. You still had questions. So you know what? They still have them too. So let's, bridge that gap. And then yeah, for those looking to gentle parent, like I said, just kind of well, if you're not in therapy, therapy is lit, first of all.
it
So
is.
get yourself a
It's lit
therapist.
over here, y'all.
Yes, we have conversations like this all of the time. It's really great. But like I said, continue to dismantle those things that like you were raised with, because that might have been being raised out of survival, and we're not being raised out of or at least we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be raising our kids on those same survival, mentality and tactics that, we use when we were kids, or, when we were under someone else's care. So these are not things that we're bringing into the next generation. So we have to be so conscious of that, so very conscious of that. So it's something that I think, is just embedded in us in every single day. Like every day I wake up, right, and the decisions that I make today are going to affect my grandkids, their kids, somebody down my family line. And I can't wait to see that, you know?
Yeah. I want to read this because that what you just said just reminded me. Let me see if I can find it really quick. There is something that I heard this weekend. Um, it says every decision is pregnant with the potential to produce a season.
Ooh, bars. Okay.
That ain't my bars. That's my pastor bars. But
Okay.
I love that, and yeah, I put it in my journal and in my notes because I was just like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
like it is a decision. It really is, and that decision that we are making or have made for those who have already made that is literally it's pregnant with the potential to produce a season, and
Mm-hmm.
not only for us but
Yeah,
for generations.
that's good.
And yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I am gonna leave it there. I think that's something to think about,
Yep.
um, for everybody to think about. I've been resting on that since Sunday. But I thank you for coming through as usual.
Thank you.
These
Thank
conversations literally, if they ain't doing nothing for anybody else, which I know they are, but they are blessing me. Let me tell you. Like, let
This,
me
this
tell
is
you.
this is like group therapy. I like it. I like
This
it.
is literally like group therapy for real. But y'all got to go get real therapy. If you want to reach out to Janae, all of her information will always be in the description. So reach out to her. In a little while, I'm about to hire her. I'm just saying. And congratulations on your book
Thank
being an
you.
audiobook.
Oh, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Yep. We just finished it, turned it into an audiobook. So I'm so excited about that. And just to kind of see, if that's going to be a whole new audience or what. So we'll see. We'll see. I love
It's
it.
come it makes me come over a little bit more only because though I read a lot, I do a lot of audiobooks because my philosophy is like my classroom is my car.
Hmm.
Most of the time I'm in there, and even in the mornings there's just times that I can't sit and read necessarily, but I can listen. So I think you are going to get a whole another level. I'm in the middle of also reading the other book, which I can't remember the name off the top. I'm reading three books at the same time. Don't judge me, y'all. I mean, look, I want to grow. I want to grow, but
That's right.
yeah. So I'm always reading. But I congratulations on the
Thank
amazing stuff
you.
that you are doing, and I know that there is so much more ahead. So until the next time,
Have a
you
nice
come and grace our space with all that wisdom. We love having you. But we will see y'all next Therapy Thursday, which is probably like 2 weeks from now. But we'll see y'all then.
day.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.